You're running to represent us in Washington DC, in Congress. Right now, Congress doesn't have a real high rating. In fact, I've heard as low as 9% this week. Hopefully that changes by the time you're in office. Why do you want to go to Washington DC?
Well, that's a very good question. Why would I want to go be a member of the House of Representatives and be in Congress? And the reason is because I really believe my opinions and my policies and things that I want to do are good for America. And they're not only good for America, they're also good for the people in the 47th District, which I hope to represent. You know, America has been such a wonderful country, and people have come here for the great opportunities that it has. We've had this experiment for 200 years, and that there's kind of a sense that something is wrong, that we're kind of getting a little bit off track. And I think the size of government is way too big. Our government spending is just out of control. Do you realize that some people say we work for the government till May, and then we begin to work for our own families and our own needs?
Wow, you raise a good point. Possibly one of the reasons for Congress's very low rating is members seem out of touch with the day-to-day concerns of Americans. It also seems that the only thing certain is really uncertainty when it comes to our domestic economic situation. Yet so many of us perceive a disconnect between our real concerns economically and otherwise and Congress's priorities. Do you agree?
I do. I agree that Congress is out of touch. And particularly my opponent, Loretta Sanchez, I think is out of touch with her district, because she's always promoting more and more government programs, which I think in the end keep people down at a certain level and do not allow them to rise to be more prosperous. And I think so many people go to Congress because they're millionaires or because they have enough money to run. It costs so much to run. And they end up kind of being a little disconnected from the needs of the community. You know, I've raised 5 children, and my husband just worked as a mechanic in the airline industry. And so for so many years, we had to really watch our budget and conserve, and you know, we faced the everyday problems that the families face. And then I've also been an employee in the community, and I started my own nonprofit organization, which is like being a small business owner. I've had to meet payroll every month, pay for medical expenses and insurance, and so it's tough having your own nonprofit and making it succeed. So I think I'm really in touch with the needs of this community, and I want to go and make a difference. And the economy is such an important issue. You ask, how can Congress make a difference in this area? And the reason is that Congress is in charge of the spending. And so we do have a lot of say through our Congress people what goes on with our economy. It's like someone else comes up with a good idea, oh, let's try that. And I think we need to really go into really good problem solving and then check out who is best to do this program, whether it's government or the private sector. We're wasting so much money on red tape, paperwork, just people, you know, I mean, you have to be accountable for the money, so it just takes a lot of paperwork. The whole system is kind of flawed that way. We work so long just to pay our taxes, and we really need to be careful with the people and the money that they make, because they have needs. The regular family has needs to take care of. And I think a lot of times these programs that help people, sometimes it hurts the people because it keeps them down at a certain level and doesn't let them rise to a higher level of prosperity. And they become dependent on someone else helping them instead of being more creative. I think it's just kind of weakened the American people, some of these programs.
Okay. Very good. So, while government spending seems high, the numbers are so hard to relate to. Our lives almost seem untouched by it in tangible terms. In Congress, you're going to be asked to vote on matters that affect our national and global economy. Can you tell me why it's important to reduce the national debt?
Yes. Our debt is so high. We're over $9 trillion deficit spending. And they say with entitlements, it's almost $50 trillion, that the liabilities we have. It's incomprehensible, or we can't even comprehend that how big our deficit is. And having such a large deficit, our dollar is falling, the value of our dollar is falling. And a lot of sometimes we just create money out of thin air. We just print money. And so it's a very big problem, our government spending.
Now that dollar is backed by the gold standard in the past, and now there's nothing behind it. So when we create solutions like we just did with the backing of the mortgage industry with the government's guarantee, in essence creates money out there, doesn't it? It says the government's going to pay for that, and so
It's
the
like,
dollar becomes less.
With a $9 trillion deficit,
Mm-hmm.
do we have money to bail out Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac? Where is this money coming from? And as in the past, sometimes they just print the money and it's kind of like a loan. We're actually borrowing money. And then oftentimes we have to borrow money from foreign countries. Well, you're asking me, what does it do for the family?
Right.
And that means that we have so much debt that we're handing on to our grandchildren, that they're going to be unable to do the wonderful things we've done in the past, because they're going to be strapped to this high taxes for the rest of their lives. And also, right now, we're paying so much in taxes, we're not able to save. And that's a really big problem. America used to be able to save some of its money, the American people. And now they're like paycheck to paycheck. But what the bigger problem is, if there are no savings, there is no money in the economy to invest. There's no capital to create new jobs and create new things. And the terrible thing is that we're having to borrow money from foreign governments. China and Japan and all these countries are lending us money to keep us afloat. Virginia, that's very dangerous for our national security.
Right.
Because,
Why is that?
well, because if China wants us to do something, we're going to be beholden to them, because they could just cash in on all the loans, or they could wreak havoc in our economy. And so they're kind of now in control of some of our foreign policy decisions. It's amazing.
What if they stop lending to us?
Yeah, and if they stop lending to us, where will we get money for new government programs? Like all the ones that are being advocated by my opponent, Loretta Sanchez. I mean, she says, oh, let's do this, and let's do that, and let's do that. But where's the money coming from? If we're in debt, we have no money.
Yeah.
We can't keep printing money just to solve, or just to do any idea that we think is great and that we think the people will like.
Yeah. They could actually take that debt and sell it to one of the Middle Eastern countries, and then we're paying interest to, possibly to terrorist organizations that
People
want to harm
that
us,
don't
right?
like us very much,
Yeah.
yes. So it becomes almost a national security issue for us. And we need to get back to sensible spending, and we need to start to work our way back. I'm not saying we can go from here to there, because we've gotten so far off track.
Right.
We need to be responsible, but start moving back in the right direction. And really finding out what programs work, what don't, how can they be better done, what's the better product in the end, and how can we rise the American people so they can enjoy the prosperity, so they can have savings, so they don't have to worry about everything.
Okay. Very good. Well, thank you, Rosie. That's excellent.